Welcome back. We're moving on to part 2 of week 10 now. So for part 2, we're going to look at a simple trick for a way to increase your English vocabulary output and also to show what great vocabulary you have, because I know you all have wonderful vocabulary. Basically what we're going to do is try to focus on simple ways to get you to produce that, to show it. So I'm going to move on now to slide 12. So slide 12 essentially is, once again, I'm trying to use images here to show you basically how we move from a paragraph into an essay. So what I want to do is I want to show you two ideas that are often used by teachers to show elementary school students how to write paragraphs. Now, essays are started in elementary school usually, but traditionally they are not a huge part of testing and school life until middle school. But we should be teaching paragraphs in elementary school. Anyways, so to look at a paragraph, essentially we're looking at 5 components, right? So 5 pieces. So what we've done here is we're using a sandwich. So the first and the last sentences, your introduction and your conclusion, are essentially made up of the same things. So in this case, for sandwiches, we're going to talk about bread and bread. Now, they're not identical because, of course, we have the top piece of bread and we have the bottom piece of bread. If you want to, you have lots of choices of what you want to put into your sandwich. So perhaps they've given some examples here. You could put tomatoes, lettuce, cheese, ham, maybe slices of beef, salami. You could put steak if you wanted in your sandwich. There are limitless choices of what you can make your ingredients, use as your ingredients, I should say. So in this case, what we're doing here is we're trying to show that we want to make a gorgeous, wonderful, amazing, delicious sandwich. We don't want to make it boring. So what's important is that we use fresh, bright, gorgeous ingredients when we're making that sandwich. So essentially what we do here is we move from the paragraph to an essay. So in the case of our paragraphs, we have our sandwich. And in the case of an essay, what we do is that top part now is the whole sandwich, is just the top bun. The lettuce is your detail 1. So detail 1 now becomes an entire paragraph when we develop it. And you give 3 details. So we give 3 types of lettuce in that sandwich or in that burger. When we move to our third paragraph, so in this case we're going to use tomatoes, we're going to use 3 different kinds of tomatoes that have 3 different colors and are so beautiful, but they're still following the second paragraph example, detail example, which is tomatoes. In our third case, we've chosen meat, okay? So lettuce, tomatoes, meat are our 3 details, which we have introduced in our sandwich. But when we move into the essay, we want to develop that. So the meats, we're going to give maybe 3 types of meat or 3 different ways to, 3 different flavors to add to that meat. So we now have, for each of these sections, we're going to be using a 10-sentence introduction, which is going to explain about the lettuce, the tomato, and the meat generally. And then we're going to focus in the second paragraph on the lettuce. And we're going to give 10 sentences about this lettuce, and we're going to talk about the different kinds of lettuce that we have used in our hamburger. In the second case, or third paragraph, which is detail 2, or detail 2 is our tomatoes. The tomatoes are gorgeous, so we're going to give 10 sentences about those tomatoes, and we're going to talk about the different shapes and smells and colors of 3 different types of tomatoes. Then in our third detailed paragraph, so we're now at the introduction, detail 1 paragraph, detail 2 paragraph, detail 3 paragraph, we're talking about the meat. And we're going to give 10 sentences which talk about 3 details of that meat. And then, of course, we're going to move right back and we're going to summarize what we have discussed, and that's going to be very, very similar to our introduction paragraph, but this time we're going to be using new vocabulary. So the difficulty becomes, well, what's another word for these words? So that's what we're going to focus on today. So the conclusion and the introduction should be the same information. Now, this is just an analogy. This is just a way to describe how to help students understand the idea of what a paragraph is, what it's made up of, is those 5 different points. Bread, and 3 different ingredients. And the same is true for an essay, but the essay, of course, is bigger, so we want more stuff in there. Moving on now to slide 13, I want to give you the essay framework again, but this time I'd like to do it just with words and see if it's clear and easy to understand. So the essay framework, okay, generally, is we want to start with an introduction paragraph. And in the introduction paragraph, we want to give 3 details. So I'm going to use Gwangju, okay? So I'm going to talk to you about 3, I want to tell you about how wonderful Gwangju is, and I'm going to introduce to you, in my introduction, I'm going to tell you about 3 different things you can do in Gwangju. The first thing you can do in Gwangju that's great is you can go to lots of wonderful restaurants. The second thing that you can do, so this is now my detail 2, is that there are many famous sites in Gwangju. Number 3 is it's really good to go shopping in Gwangju, and it's very easy to go shopping in Gwangju. So what I'm going to do is then in my introduction, I'm going to restate again my topic, which is Gwangju, and how wonderful Gwangju is. So now I'm going to move into paragraph 2. Okay, so this also works when you're presenting because then you focus on your details. But in this case, we're focusing on our writing. So our our paragraph 2 is about our detail 1. So the first detail, if you remember, is why is Gwangju great? Gwangju is great because of its restaurants. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 3 different restaurants that I can talk about that are really good restaurants for you to go to and try. So I would choose maybe, you could choose, there are a variety of ways to do this, but one way is to choose 3 different restaurants. Another way to do it is to choose 3 different areas that are quite famous for you to go to. And then paragraph 2, one more time, I'm just going to conclude one more time. Gwangju is great because of its restaurants. So moving on, what I want to do here is I wanted to give you an example going back to a paragraph. So here I've got an introduction paragraph, and what's the title? I'm hoping you read the title of The Perfect Ice Cream Sundae. So if we take a look together and read it together, then we get, and I suggest that you read this out loud with me. So ice cream sundaes are delicious. Okay, so this is our general topic. Ice cream sundaes are delicious. We're going to show how. Okay, there are so many different ingredients that can be used to make the perfect ice cream sundae. So what are we talking about? Ingredients. We're going to learn how to make a perfect, delicious ice cream sundae. Now, please be careful. This is not sundae. It's sundae. So it's written with D-A-E, not D-A-Y. In this case, it's this picture I've given you. It's bananas, ice cream, sauces, and toppings. So, how? So now we're going to move into our detail 1. So what's detail 1? It's always best to start with 3 different ice cream flavors. Now, how do you know that's detail 1? Is there a transition word that we can see there? Read it again. So we've got, it's always best to start with 3 different ice cream flavors. So we have that transition word which goes, to start. So we have our 3 different ice cream flavors, and then we're going to give one more sentence about it. Some favorite flavors are chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. So, paragraph 2 topic, I think you might be able to guess what it is. Anyways, moving on. So detail 2, what's detail 2 going to be? Let's see. Next, sauces can be added. Ice cream connoisseurs may enjoy strawberry sauce on strawberry ice cream, chocolate sauce on chocolate ice cream, and marshmallow fluff on vanilla ice cream. So if you can see, we've got three examples there. So what's the topic here? Did you notice that there was a transition word? What's the transition word that helps us to say, oh yes, this is our next detail? Detail 2 is next, right? So we've got next, there's our transition word. And what's our topic? Sauces. Okay, so now we've got our detail 2, which is our paragraph 3 topic. Okay. Now, some of you maybe are wondering what connoisseurs are. Connoisseurs are experts. So, for example, you can have a wine connoisseur. That's an expert about wine. An ice cream connoisseur is an expert about ice cream. So a connoisseur, next one. Okay, so we're moving on now to detail 3. So we should be able to get the feeling. So we see, as a final touch, add toppings. Chopped nuts and colorful sprinkles are a good combination. And we can see some sprinkles in the picture on the vanilla ice cream with the chocolate sauce. There's whipped cream on top and some colorful sprinkles on the top. You can also see them perhaps on Hawaiian donuts if you ever go to Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. So, did you notice a transition word to show us what detail 3 was? I'm hoping that you saw our final as a final touch. So that final should be another one of those, we're changing. We're moving to another topic, another detail. So this is our third detail, which should be our paragraph 4 topic. Okay? So what I'm going to ask you now is, can you tell me so now we're going to finish it off. Before serving, don't forget to top with a cherry. Now I would like, if I wanted this to be a really, really good, clear paragraph, I'd like one more sentence and bring it right back to the beginning. This is the most perfect ice cream sundae in the world. And if you do like ice cream, then you should give this a try because ice cream sundaes are wonderful. But they're actually best to share with at least one other person because 3 scoops of ice cream and a banana split in half with some toppings on top is a lot of food and a lot of fat. So if you're trying to watch your weight, probably you should stay away from ice cream sundaes. But they are lovely, they are wonderful, and they're a fantastic date snack because they're really good for sharing. So my first question to you is, what is the topic of paragraph 2? So I'm hoping you see that it's detail 1. And detail 1 is 3 different ice cream flavors. And how do we know that again? Oh yeah, we looked for that transition word to start. Next, can you tell me what the paragraph 3 topic would be? So our paragraph 3 is going to be about detail 2, but detail 2 is going to be the whole topic for the paragraph. So can you remember what detail 2 is? So we started with our ice cream. What do we put on top of the ice cream? And I'm hoping you said sauces. So our sauces are next. Sauces are going to be our detail 2, which is going to be the topic for paragraph 3. Now, can you figure out, what about paragraph 4? So paragraph 4, remember we also had a transition word. We had final in there. So as a final touch is going to be our transition word to show we're changing to detail 3. So what's detail 3 again? Toppings. Good. So we're going to put some toppings on the top of our ice cream. Get it? Toppings. So the toppings are our final detail, detail 3, which means this is going to be the general topic for paragraph 4. So we're just going to give more details about that. Okay, so I'm hoping you can see how the introduction paragraph works. The introduction paragraph is our basic introduction of what we're going to talk about in our whole essay. Okay, now the question that lots of students have is, but when we talk about our introduction, we're talking about the same information. So how can we change the vocabulary? So we're going to move on now to our slide 15. And slide 15 is talking about our synonyms and antonyms. Now, perhaps you're wondering, what is a synonym? What is an antonym? So what we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at each of these individually, and then we're going to practice. So syno, or is basically what it means is we have two things and they're very similar. Okay, so a synonym is basically two words. Okay, one word and its synonym, which have a very similar meaning. Now they're not identical; there are slight differences, but generally speaking, we accept them to be pretty much the same thing. So an example that I've given you here, I've chosen some pictures which are quite funny. Do you know who Justin Timberlake is? Well, anyways, in this picture, this is from a long time ago, Justin Timberlake had an interesting dye job. So his hair was dyed bright blonde, and I think his hair looks rather like Lamia. What do you think? So I think they're synonymous. They look similar, they look the same, almost the same. And then we've got a picture of Einstein sticking his tongue out, and then a cute picture of a little baby sticking her tongue out. So I also think that these two look similar. They are synonymous. So I've also given you some words which are synonyms. So happy's synonym would be glad, or joyful also is a synonym for happy. But my question to you is, can you think of what the difference is between these words? So I'm hoping that you got the idea of happy is an internal feeling that when something good happens, that's the feeling we experience. We feel happy. Glad is a very similar idea, but perhaps not as strong. It's more neutral than happy. And joyful means full of joy, which means a hugely happy experience, hugely happy feeling. So there are slight differences to these words, but the most important point that I'm trying to establish is they have a very similar meaning, so we can use these different words as a show of our vocabulary skill, and we can use them in our essays and in our paragraphs interchangeably. So we can take happy out, don't use happy, 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 happy. We can say happy, and the next time glad, and the next time joyful, and we give the same meaning. Now, what I wanted to talk about is right at the bottom of the slide. Can you see at the bottom of the slide there's a bullet which has 2 stars, the 2 asterisks, and then we have a website, thesaurus.com. So a thesaurus is a thesaurus is basically a dictionary of synonyms, okay? Synonyms and antonyms. And this is a really useful tool for you when you're using English and any language really, because it helps for you to A, learn more vocabulary, B, learn synonyms for words, and also to help your writing to increase your vocabulary usage. So if you go to thesaurus.com and you type in a word, then you will get a variety of choices. So I'm doing it right now, thesaurus.com. So for example, if I type in happy and I want a synonym, then I get choices that are in red and orange. Now the best choice is the words in red or dark orange. So the ones that it's in alphabetical order, so we start with C, then D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and so on. But the ones in red are by far the best choices. So if someone's happy, they're cheerful, they're contented. So this is what we're looking for. So you can see glad and joyful are there. So the best choices that you have are the ones in red. Now, what I'd like to do next is move on to slide 17. So how do you say synonym in Korean? Now, I know that probably a lot of you like to translate directly from Korean into English, from English into Korean. So this is maybe useful for you. This is also really good for you when you're teaching young students because they need a little bit of extra help. So synonym in English has 3 synonyms, and if you, 3 syllables. And in Korean also. So we have 동의어, and this is a really, really useful tool for you to be teaching your future students as well. So you could do some really simple exercises with synonyms, which we're going to try. I'll show you a couple of possible examples in a couple minutes. The next thing is to talk about the opposites. So synonyms are two words that are very similar in meaning. So what's an antonym? They are opposites, okay? So the idea for this is you can think about maybe anti. So usually like an antidote or antithesis. Basically the idea is anti means the opposite of. So an example is fast. Okay, so I've got my pictures, I've got these two little boys. There's one boy who's very, very fast. The antonym of fast is slow. What about tall? So tall's antonym is short. What about long? What is long's antonym? I'm hoping you said short also. So the point of this exercise of what we're going to be doing and practicing here is that we have a variety of words we can use in a variety of ways. There is not only one answer to these questions, and this is one of the points that I would like to try to get across to you, because one of the issues I have with a lot of English teaching is that there is one question and one answer. But actually, if you think about the way that language is used, it's a very personal usage, and how you produce language, how you use language, changes by person. So this is what I'm trying to encourage, is for you to use English in your own special way. So anyways, one of the ways in which you can do this is by your word choice. So what about antonym? How do we say antonym in Korean? I would use 반대말, so the opposite. I thought this was a really cute example with the cat. So you can look at the front of the cat, the head, and the tail. So the big question, of course, now, I'm moving on to slide 20, is, how? So how do we use synonyms? How do we use antonyms? My point about using these words is that for you, Korean students, you have immense vocabularies. Your vocabularies are huge. But when I actually look at students' writing, usually I get the same exact words from all students. Now, in real life, this is almost impossible, because students come from all different types of lives. They've lived in different cities, different countries. They've met different people. They have different families. So how is it possible that all of these wonderfully different people use the same identical words to describe something? So what we want to do is to move away from this, because it's boring. And actually it's not true about who you are as individuals. So what we want to do is we want to be encouraging, or what I would like you to do is to encourage you to use English in your own way, to use these words that you know to describe how you feel. So I want you to use your vocabulary. Show me the vocab. I would like you to show me what you know. All that effort you've put into memorizing vocabulary, use it. Show me what you know, what you have studied. I'd also really like to see this, because I'd like to see what skill level you have developed in yourself for your vocabulary. So what I've done is I've created a little kind of simple game for you to push your memory, to push your thinking, and to push your timing, because obviously watching a video like this is probably a little bit boring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you, I've moved on now to slide 21, I'm going to say, let's try together. So what I'd like you to do is, first of all, to understand that there's really no incorrect answer, because we're all just trying. So what I'd like you to do is I'm going to give you some words, and I would like you to think of one synonym. If you can think of more, fantastic, excellent, pat yourself on the back. For each of these 7 slides that I'm going to show you, you'll have 15 seconds to think of at least one synonym. And once you've thought of that synonym, say it. say it out loud. If you want to, you can even yell it. So let's take a look at slide 22 and begin. So yell it out if you can think of one, or as soon as you think of one. What is the synonym, the similar meaning of hard? Ding! Did you get one? I'm hoping you got at least one. What about large? Ding! Alright, now maybe these ones are a little bit easy? I don't know, let's see. So I'm going to give you some words that are a little bit more difficult to push you and get you hopefully thinking. Here we go. What is the synonym for pretty? What is a synonym for pretty? 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ding! Did you get one? I'm hoping you got at least one. So we're going to move on. At the end, we'll take a look together and see if you got the same answers as me. If not, that is absolutely fine. There is not just one answer, remember. This is not the point of the exercise. The point is to think of different words that have a similar meaning. Okay, here we go. Next one. What is a synonym for dangerous? I'm hoping you got at least one, because your time's up. Here we go. We're going to move on to another one. What is a synonym for empty? Ding! All right, we're moving on, and we've got 2 more to go. So what is a synonym for worried? Ding! And our last one. Now this one perhaps might be a little bit difficult, but we're going to try it. What is a synonym of optimistic? Ding! So I'm hoping that you managed to get at least one synonym for each of these words. And what we're going for is that there's no particular single one answer for each of these. There are a variety of possibilities, and this is actually what I'm trying to show basically, is that there's not always just one answer to everything. So anyways, what I'd like to do is take a look together. So how did you do? I'm now on slide 29. And what I'd like to do is take a look at the 7 ones that we chose, or the seven descriptive words that I chose, the 7 adjectives. So did you get any of the synonyms that I've chosen here? So what I've done here, just to make sure everyone's clear, is I use the equal sign to show it's similar or equal to. So what did you choose for hard? Now, another point that I'd like to make is sometimes we use one word and it has 2 meanings in a language. We do this in most languages that I know of. So we have hard. Okay, what is a synonym? A similar word is hard. So what I chose was solid. But perhaps you chose a different meaning of hard. Perhaps you chose difficult. So if something is hard, it can also be difficult. So keep in mind that often we have words that have more than one meaning. We have different types of meaning. So we, as teachers especially, we need to keep our minds open to the possibility that the student we're teaching sees things in a different way to what we do. but that doesn't mean that they're wrong. So, also, when you're preparing, when you're teaching, you need to consider these ideas. Okay, what about large? So large, the synonym I chose for large, I'm guessing probably a lot of you got, is big. Okay, so something that is large is something that is big. What about pretty? Now pretty is a hard word to think about because it has also two meanings. We can choose pretty as in, someone who, like a girl who's pretty. We don't use this with men, it's just for women. So perhaps you could say she's cute, okay? Or a pretty little dog, maybe? Or a cute little dog? Possibly we could choose this. Another meaning of pretty means fairly, or, it's she's pretty sure he is coming to the party. Means she's fairly sure he's coming to the party. So once again, we have a couple of choices for an answer. What about dangerous? Dangerous. So the word that I chose is risky. Something is risky, something is dangerous. But perhaps you chose something else. Dangerous, it's unsafe. We can always use the negative prefix added onto a word to give the same meaning in the opposite. What about empty? Now again, empty could mean, oh, my stomach is empty. There's nothing in it, right? Or we could talk about an empty room. So it's roomy, an empty desk, or it's unoccupied. There's a lot of space and there's nobody in it. What about worried? What do you think is a similar word to worried? Oh, maybe someone is troubled or anxious or upset about something. But my point about this is that there are lots and lots of choices. Lots of choices. And my last one that I chose was optimistic. So for this one, I went for hopeful. Someone is hopeful, they're optimistic, they're looking forward to the future. Perhaps you got different words. Anyways, the point of this exercise is a brain exercise to get us thinking outside of the box that we have been taught how to think. This must have an answer to that. Moving on. We're moving on now to slide 30. So in slide 30, we're going to do the opposite. So what I'd like to do for the next 7 slides is I want you to think about antonyms. So antonyms for the words mean that I'd like you to have the same 7 slides, you have the same 15 seconds for each slide, but this time you're thinking of an opposite word in meaning. Let's go, let's try. Here we go. So I'm moving on now to slide 31. What is an antonym for hard? So I'm hoping you got one. So, again, this is what I was trying to say before, is that hard has 2 different meanings. So if you answered soft, excellent. Or if you answered a word which has the same, which is a synonym for soft, then that is excellent. That's very true. But also, you could have answered easy, or a synonym for easy, because this is also correct. It is also true because we have the 2 different meanings of hard. So just keep in mind that there may not be only one answer. There are lots of choices. Okay, moving on now. So once again, what is the antonym for, or what is an antonym for? Large. What's the opposite of large? What's the opposite of pretty? Or pretty? Ding! What about dangerous? What is the opposite of dangerous? Ding! All right, and we're moving on. What is the opposite of empty? What about worried? What's the opposite of worried? All right, and our last one, what's the opposite of optimistic? Good. Well, what I'd like to do is go through these. Now remember, once again, that there's not only one answer. So what I chose is to give the antonyms that I thought would be one of the antonyms you could possibly give for each of these words. So now take a look and remember that if I put an equal sign with a cross through it, what this symbol, I use this symbol to mean the opposite of. So what's the opposite of hard? Ah, soft, something that's soft. So something that's soft, or we could use difficult. So what's the opposite of difficult? Easy. Remember again, there are many possible answers to this. So just make sure that it matches. What about large? Something that is large, what's the opposite? It's small. Or variety of choices. What about pretty? So, if you have a pretty animal, what's the opposite? Maybe an ugly animal, something like that. Or if you say he's pretty nice, what's the opposite? He's very nice. So we could use it in that way as well. Dangerous, what's the opposite of dangerous? Maybe you said safe. Or what about empty? If something is empty, you have an empty room, you could have the opposite, a full room. Or empty stomach, full stomach. We could use it in that way. Opposite of worried, I'm so worried about something, I'm not sure. I'm worried about doing a presentation next week. Or the opposite, maybe you're calm, you're relaxed, easygoing. What about optimistic? Optimistic, traditionally the opposite is pessimistic, but perhaps you chose a different word. As long as it's opposite in meaning to optimistic, you got it. Good job. Moving on, we're going to move on to your week 10 assignment. So week 10 assignment, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write 5 adjectives, 5 description words, 5 형용사s, and I'd like you to write their synonyms. Now remember, this is not an exact science, so there's not just one answer, there's a variety of answers. If you aren't sure, use thesaurus.com or something equivalent to find a synonym. And then for your 5 adjectives, please don't use my adjectives. You can get your own. Then choose 5 synonyms and then choose 5 antonyms for those words. So I've given you an example here of what you can, of what I would like you to do. Okay, so I'm moving on now, and I just want to explain why this is important. So remember that the better the vocabulary, the more interesting the vocabulary, basically it shows that you have very good skill and it makes your writing really, really good. So if you use synonyms and you use antonyms, then we move from a plain, boring paragraph to something that is absolutely gorgeous, absolutely stunning. So what I did here is I tried to show you like a boring sandwich, 2 pieces of bread, 1 piece of meat, and then look at the sandwiches that this person has created. Aren't they amazing? So this is what we can do with words, all right? So we use these things to add skill. We add these details, and that means we make it more interesting, okay? So I'm going to move on now to a further part of our week 10 assignment. So for your week 10 assignment, I would also like you to do an interview again. This is really good for you to practice your English skills. So I would like you to call your partner, the same partner as you had for week 9. But this time we're going to do a childhood interview. So I've moved on to slide 43. For your childhood interview, what I would like you to do is I would like you to, first of all, go through, I've given you 15 questions. So I'd like you to go through the questions and decide if it's the to be verb or, and remember because it's childhood, it has finished, so we're going to use our past tense. And what I'd like you to do first is I'd like you to fill in the blanks of the questions, okay? So fill in the blanks of the questions and check to see if the questions are correct, okay? So I'd like you to do it by yourself first, please. Be honest and try, no one's gonna see it but you, and check yourself, okay? So we have to decide if it's something that was fact, internal, or if it was something that you chose to do. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to fill in those blanks as part of your week 10 assignment. And then what I'd like you to do is to choose I'd like you to choose 5 questions that you think are particularly interesting. Now the idea for you choosing 5 is maybe 1 or 2 of those questions, the answers won't be very interesting, so we're going to get rid of those questions afterwards. But we need to get enough information to decide what is interesting. For example, I don't really want to hear about someone who sometimes did something, because really that's not interesting. What we want is someone who did something and it was interesting, or they hated something. It was terrible for them. So we're going to use the same partners as you did for week 9, and please call them and interview in English. Use English only if you can, okay? That's what we're looking for. So here are your questions, and what I'd like you to do is fill in the blanks with the correct verb. So the point of this is not for you to get it right. The point for you is to check yourself. Can you fill in the to be verb and the to do verb in questions? So number 1, where blank you born? Number 2, where blank you grow up? Now, what I'd like to point out here is we've got an action, growing up, okay? So I'm going to give you a big hint there. Number 3, blank you move frequently, and this means move your houses. So maybe if your dad was in the military, or a policeman maybe, or a teacher, maybe your dad or your mom were asked to move every 2 years or so. So the question you have to figure out is, if we have this action, what is it? Is it to be or to do? So remember, to be is internal, to do is outside, something, action that we're doing. Number 4, who, and be careful with this one because we need a past tense verb right here. Who care of you when you were little? So when you were small, who stayed home with you? Did your mom stay home with you, or maybe your dad? Or was it maybe your grandma or your grandpa, possibly? Or maybe a nanny, someone who lived in the house with you who took care of you, that you maybe called Imo, or came to your house every day and took care of you, or did you maybe go to a daycare center like an Oranichib? Number 5, blank. You a good student? Do you want to be or to do? Number 6, blank you enjoy going to school. Now notice again we've got that second verb, enjoy, so it's the action. Number 7, blank you get homework. So again we've got the action, second verb. And moving on to slide 45, blank you ever skip school. Now skipping school means you should go to class, you should go to Hagwon, but you decide, no, I'm going to go and watch a movie with my friends instead. So it's illegal, but when we're young sometimes we do that. Number 9, what blank your favorite subject and why? Number 10, what blank your favorite snack? So remember, this is when we were talking about when you were young, so in elementary school. Okay, not middle school, not high school, in elementary school. Number 11, who, and then we need a past tense verb here. Who, and we want the past tense of teach you to ride a bicycle. And related to that, how old blank you when you learned to ride a bicycle? Number 12, who blank your favorite teacher and why? Number 13, blank you afraid of anything? What? What were you afraid of? Number 14, what blank your favorite cartoons and TV shows and why? Number 15, blank you have a crush. Blank you like someone special. So a crush is when you like someone special. So maybe there's a special girl or a special guy, and when you see them, you feel, oh, he's so lovely or she's so lovely. And if they speak to you, you feel, and maybe you turn red, you blush. So did you have a crush on someone? Was there someone special that you, oh, he's so lovely? And this can also be, music stars or actors. Someone that when you see them, you, oh, but you don't do it out loud. You're usually too shy when you're young. So do your best to fill in the blanks and then check yourself. So slides 46 and 47 are the answers. But I really, really, really would like you, please, 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 to try and answer those questions or fill in the blanks first and then check. So what I'll do is I'll leave that to you. So I'll give you some time to think about that, and then we'll move on. So once you've filled in those blanks and checked your questions, what I'd like you then to do, so I've skipped slide 46 and 47, and what I'm going to do is take a look now at slide 48. So if we take a look at slide 48, you can see that